We're now going to talk about managing software in Unix, specifically in BSD. Now, like a lot of other Linux and Unix systems, software is managed through packages. You can also manage software in BSD through ports. We'll talk about the different methods of managing software as we go through the next few sessions. But let me describe to you a little bit about what each of these methods are. First of all, the ports collection allows software installation from source code, and it uses a series of make commands, such as make install, make configure, and so forth. This all comes from the source code, which is usually wrapped in a tarball. And you would download this tarball and then go ahead and untar it, uncompress it, and then run the appropriate commands. Packages are very familiar to you if you've used Linux before or even some other versions of Unix. Packages are basically pre-made packages of software. Some may come in a tarball, some may come in a RPM file such as those from a Red Hat Package Manager and so forth. Packages for BSD are a little bit different, but they're same concept. Packages use a few commands to manage them, such as package add, package delete, and package info. And you would run these commands after installing the appropriate packages from the software, such as CD or from FTP or some other source, and then you would run these commands to get the package installed and configured. Now, during installation of BSD, you run the sysinstall command, which is the system installer, and at that time you can choose to allow packages, ports, and distribution sources to be configured. You can also do this afterwards as well. Either way is fine. Now, one thing I want to tell you is when you run sysinstall, you're probably going to be presented with a lot of different options on installing software, and there's a lot of different software that actually comes with the FreeBSD distribution disk. But I would advise you to only install what you need on a production server. And this is basically for security reasons. The more software you install, the more things that a server can do, the more wider the vector of attack is if someone wants to attack that server. So you want to actually minimize the number of services and applications running on that server. For example, if you have a database server, only database applications and code should be loaded on the server. You shouldn't have a lot of different things on there that the database server really doesn't need to function. You don't need games and so forth. So for security reasons, only install what you need. Let's go ahead and take a look at sysinstall, which basically runs our setup and gets everything else to working, the packages and the ports. Okay, we're in our FreeBSD virtual machine, and what I'd like to do is run sysinstall, and you're probably familiar with sysinstall if you've ever installed a FreeBSD system. And you can run this when the system is installed or at any time after the system is installed, so you can configure the system pretty much any way you like after installation. What we're going to do is look at the configure option, and then we're going to look at a few things. First of all, we're going to look at distributions. Now, distribution sets basically give us the option of installing certain distributions of software. Those could be kernels, dictionary, documents, games, and so forth. Right now we're going to install the base distribution, which is basically required for just about a lot of other things, just about everything as a matter of fact. And we could also choose to install some other things if we like. I wouldn't recommend installing some things unless you need to, such as additional kernels or things of that nature, unless you really need them. Let's go ahead and just install the base distribution right now. And we're going to say OK to this. It's going to ask us where we want to install them from. And right now we're going to install from the CD or DVD that we use to install the system with. But we could also install from an FTP server or an NFS share, so forth. You have a lot of different options for this. We're going to say OK. And it's going to install base into the system. And this can take a minute or two, depending upon how fast your computer is. But it's normally not an extended long process. Now, if you do go through and select a lot of different packages, you're looking at a little bit of install time. So it could get to be rather lengthy. For what we're doing right now, it's not going to take that long. Okay, as a matter of fact, it's done. Now let's go and install something else. Let's install some packages. Let's go and thumb down a little bit through here and see what we find. Let's install Astro, applications related to astronomy. Say we want to do some astronomy stuff on here or study it. And there's different ports, packages we can install. We can select all of those. Let's say OK. And then it's going to give us the option to install. We're going to say OK. And it's going to confirm that this is what we want to do. Now, one thing I would mention through here is if you select anything that's going to have dependencies, in other words, requires other packages to install as well, the system will go ahead and let you know about those dependencies, and it will install that software as long as you agree to it. So you may get more packages than you bargained for when you install these things, because there may be other dependent packages it needs. So we're going to say OK, and it's going to install those packages and it's going to give us the confirmation messages that they were installed. And notice that it did install a couple of dependency packages. So we've installed some distributions and we've installed some packages. And that's basically how sysinstall works for you. Now you can go and revisit this as many times as you like, and if you decide you want to install something else, you can, and that's not a problem normally. But again, keep it to a minimum for security reasons. If you're on a test system or a development system, that's okay, install whatever you like. But when you start installing a production system, install only the software you need to make the system run.